Hello to my studio teacher friends. Welcome to the Beyond Measure podcast, your place for unpacking the many human elements behind our music teacher work. Christina Whitlock here, your host and self-appointed anytime piano teacher friend. Today, our Summertime Conversation series continues with the one and only Diane Hidy. Diane Hidy's work as a performer and teacher and composer and blogger, all of these things have influenced the work that we do today. And I wanted to chat with her about this supersized career that she has had. In case you're not familiar with Diane Hidy, let me tell you, Diane started her career studying with some of the biggest names in teaching at the time, like John Perry and Leon Fleischer. She eventually found her way to teaching, ultimately starting a blog that was hugely influential in piano teacher circles. She also publishes uniquely thoughtful compositions, some of which are published by Chose, but all of her work currently exists through Wendy Stevens' site, composecreate.com. I'm going to say one more thing about Diane Hidy before we chat. She's a teacher's teacher. When I launched the Beyond Measure podcast, much to my surprise, Diane was one of my earliest cheerleaders. She consistently encouraged me that I was doing good work, and here's the icing on the cake. When I launched the Patreon community all those years ago, she was one of my earliest supporters over there. If you know Diane, you know she only says what she means. So it's always been nice to have her stamp of approval on my work. Here's something about Diane Hidy and yours truly. You put us in a room together and we can talk all day. There are some pretty humorous outtakes from the conversation you're about ready to hear, and some of those can be found inside the Super Friends community on Patreon in this week's bonus conversation. Head to ChristinaWhitlock.com/community to find out how you can support this show and get access to all that good bonus stuff. And now, I bring you highlights from my conversation with Diane Hidy. Diane Hidy is here at Beyond Measure, and I'm so excited about this, Diane. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here at long last.
At long last. Well, I thought it would be fun to talk to you today because I don't know that every teacher realizes how much of your fingerprints are all over our industry. But in my mind, Diane Hidy has had some really significant impacts on 21st century musician, piano teacher life in many respects. So you've been a highly accomplished performer. You're obviously a well sought after teacher. You've created all this content for teachers. You're a composer of fantastic music for our students that we love. And I thought we might be able to just kind of look at all of those aspects of your career and talk about maybe some of the highs and lows of those things.
Sure. I'm happy to talk. Sure, of course.
Fantastic. Well, let's start kind of where it all began, which is with your performance career. Do you feel comfortable giving like the bird's eye view of your life as a performer?
Sure. I did a lot of different things along the way to becoming a, sort of concert pianist and actually doing lots of playing. And I think I had a childhood teacher from middle school and through high school who was a wonderful person and a wonderful teacher. Her name was Michiko Miyamoto. And she was really great. But one of the things she didn't do very well was help me get into a decent college. So I didn't really realize I was like kind of really pretty good. I thought I was good, but I didn't really understand. And so it took me, I went to a small Christian college my first year of college, and I was very young, and I was actually more of a voice major. I sang a lot. Yeah, I sang a lot. And I got super into choral music, and I hated my piano teacher that was at that school. And I was 17 years old, and he told me I was over the hill.
What?
I'm not kidding you. I was
My.
a 17-year-old freshman in college, and he told me that I was over the hill. I'm like, wow. He was like, people at Juilliard play better than you do. Okay, so then of course I thought, oh, I should go to Juilliard. So I took a year off and I worked. I got a job in a college music department as an accompanist for a chorus for one semester. Then I worked at an amusement park as a singer and dancer to earn money to go to Juilliard, and I went to Juilliard.
Nice.
And I didn't know, I was very naive. I didn't know that you should grease the palm of someone and try and get in with a good teacher. So I got the worst teacher in the place. And so I tried desperately to change teachers while I was at Juilliard, and Juilliard is super political. So
Yeah.
I went and played for people like Earl Wild, and they would say things like, oh, Joe's doing such a great job with you. I couldn't possibly take you as a student. So while I was there, I met John Perry through a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up on the West Coast. Now I'm in New York, and I'm calling my mom and saying, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to USC. And she's like, I just got you to New York. So I went to USC. And I did my undergraduate with John, and that was fantastic. I mean, it was difficult, but I loved studying with John. And then I took a semester off and then decided, oh, I really want to go study with Fleischer.
Mm-hmm.
So in the middle of the year, I showed up at Peabody. I mean, I went back, auditioned, got in, and then I studied with Fleischer. And I very quickly did my master's in just a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went back to LA, and I thought, ooh, let's see, what am I going to do? I think I want to go do the Clyburn competition. And I didn't have any money. And so I thought, well, I'm kind of cute and perky. Maybe I can get on a game show. I'm in LA, so why don't I go get on a game show? So that's what I did. I ended up getting on this terrible show called Tic Tac Dough. I won a bunch of money and a bunch of trips too, and crazy stuff like refrigerators and whatever, golf clubs and shoes and things. But anyway, I used the money to support myself so that I could take lessons with Perry and go do the Clyburn competition. And that was just a really interesting experience. I got knocked out after the first round, but I learned a lot. And I got to know a lot of the people at the Clyburn competition, and subsequently ended up doing some work for them. And then the thing that really changed things for me was when I won what's now the American Pianist Association Award, which at that time was called the Beethoven Foundation Awards. And so if you won, you became a fellow, right? And like the joke was, when I won, they took a really long time to announce it because they couldn't decide whether I should be called a fellow or not.
Oh no, Diane.
And it had not even it hadn't even occurred to them. And they had all this information available afterwards about like what you were supposed to wear for all the different things. But they also had not occurred to them that a guy wouldn't win.
Wow.
So it was like, you should wear a tux for this and you should wear that, whatever. So then this woman who was running the competition at the time just made up all this stuff. I remember she made up all this stuff about how if it's an afternoon recital, you should wear a T-length dress with matching hose. And I'm going, like, what is this? Let me out of here, you know? So anyway, the end of the rest of the concert stuff is just through the Beethoven Foundation. I played a lot of concerts. I played a lot of concertos in crazy little towns in Texas or Illinois or whatever. And I was playing a lot. I played a lot of recitals, and I liked the playing and I hated the travel. Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't like to travel. I don't like to travel alone playing concerts. It's really boring. And it's very lonesome. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to get married and have some kids and sort of do that. So I stopped. I just stopped, and I got married and started having kids and figured out other ways to support myself that were more appropriate. It wasn't that I stopped playing. It was just, I really did not like that. And when I watch really big name people like Yu Zhuang or whatever, all these famous people, I just look at their schedules and I go, I have no envy for that. I mean, just none. Zero. I mean, I sometimes miss playing.
Sure.
I miss playing chamber music. I don't have lots of good people to play chamber music with here, but um, I don't miss concertizing, and I certainly don't miss the travel.
Travel can be really exhausting and always a state of upheaval. So,
Yeah, to be honest, lots of kind of creepy conductors, lots of creepy male conductors.
mm,
Just, not great stuff. I didn't love
mm.
it. So I ditched
Oh,
it.
well, I think we all have to take stock of that, right? Like, because I'm sure at that stage of your life, you'd been chasing that for so long and you'd been sold that this is the ideal.
Right.
And then you were reaching the ideal and it wasn't actually what satisfied you.
It made me very unhappy. And there was just nothing communal. And it turned out I actually needed community on a regular basis. So,
Oh. So after Diane Hidy, the performer, or not after, I mean, you still perform. So,
yes.
but talk to me about your teaching career.
Well, the first year that I was teaching, I didn't know what I was doing. I think one of the things that's the hardest if you're actually a high level performer is when you go out into the world and you're trying to get students. It's Susie Johnson, and she doesn't know where middle C is, and she
Right.
might be dyslexic,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you don't know what dyslexia is, and you have just no clue. You don't know what's going on,
Yes.
and you're trying to teach beginners, and you have no idea what that's like because you were never the beginner you're teaching. Like if you're me, okay, I had perfect pitch and I came from a super musical family and I'm super coordinated, whatever. But the kids that you're getting are just normal kids and you don't know how to teach them,
Right.
right? You have no idea what to do. So the thing that was the most helpful for me was there was somebody who was a very experienced teacher who asked me to teach a couple days a week in her studio.
Nice.
And so I went out there and I remember the first time I was interviewing a student. She had me interview a couple of students like to see if they wanted to study with me. And this girl came in and I thought she was just awful. She was a transfer student and I said, "Woof, I don't think so." And I remember Carol looked at me and she said, "She didn't think much of you either." And that had just never crossed my mind, that somebody wouldn't want me. I thought, oh, of course, everybody wants me. And that was kind of like a
Obviously.
little red flag. Oh, whoa. And then the other thing was that I realized I didn't know any repertoire. I just only knew the pieces that I had played. It was excruciating. I mean, I had no idea. And it took me a long time to kind of figure it out.
To me, one of the things, knowing your work, is that you have really gone all in on what does my student see when I put this music in front of them?
Yeah.
What are they
Yeah.
experiencing? And we've kind of been talking all summer, really all of my conversations I've been having kind of end up coming back to curiosity and really trying to figure out the inner workings of the student in front of you.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was natural for you? Did it take you a long time to get there? Or did you find yourself kind of quickly trying to figure that out? Because, I mean, I was 14 when I got hired at my local music store and I didn't know anything, but I do feel like I got curious really quick.
I think I did get curious pretty quickly. I have two children and my son is, let's just say, not the most middle of the road person on the planet.
Yes.
And I started becoming just incredibly curious about what he needed. And because he needed so much support, he was so bored in school. So I started supplementing his curriculum and doing all this stuff. And at the same time, I was doing all this teaching of kids and I started just getting really interested in what was happening with them. And then there was this one girl that I was teaching. I mean, this took a long time. It wasn't like it was 5 minutes after I started teaching.
Sure.
But there was one girl, her name's Katya. Katya has really bad ADD. And I could not find any music that worked for her. And so I wrote this piece called Vanishing Villain that I published as a sheet through Chose. And I wrote it for her. She's the first one that I started to become extraordinarily curious about what she needed to see and how much interest she needed. She was so easily bored. She could not concentrate unless more was happening. And then that was when I started really realizing how much music we give kids really early on that it is just in a 5-finger pattern with no rhythm. Da da dee da 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 da. And you're like,
That was very good. Round of applause.
yeah, but I mean, who wants to play that puppy?
Right.
You know, not me. And so I started going, oh, why is it that we think we can't have yada dum? Like, what kid can't go yada dum? And you think, wait, you know, every kid on the planet can play da dum bum bum da dum bum bum da dum bum bum da dum bum bum with exactly the right rhythm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it we think that a kid can't play da da dum ba da dum bum bum bum? Why do they have to go da 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 whatever? So that's when I started getting into the idea of a rhythmic germ, and I started writing pieces. I started writing them for Katya.
Nice.
And that just kind of blew up into this whole attention grabber thing. So that's when I started writing a lot. And that was when I started really experimenting with what do things look like on a page? What really needs to be on a page? Do we need all this extra stuff? How much fingering do they need? What kind of, what's actually easy? What's actually hard? There's a Stephen Sondheim line where he says, what's difficult is easy, what's easy is hard. You know, there's that line.
Yes.
And I felt like that was the key to writing for kids.
Yes.
Because if you don't interest them right from the get-go, right, if there's no hook, like we expect there to be hooks in pop music, right? But we don't think they need them in the music that they're playing, right? We don't think, well, they might need something that actually is appealing, right? So anyway, that's how that all started. And then that blew up into a whole other world of stuff. Yeah, it's been really good. I've loved doing it.
I think teachers drastically underestimate the power of what's on the page in front of our students, and the visual overwhelm they experience in almost any material we give them, and how much
I don't even know that you need to say almost. I think you can say in any material. They don't know where to look. They don't know what they're doing. You know.
It's so true. It's so true. So that is something that you've done very intentionally, as you've really thought, okay, now, do I write this above the notes? Do I write it below the notes? Do I need all these finger numbers? Do I need a key signature? Or do I, you know, all of those things?
You don't need a key signature. So there are certain things that I will take credit for, okay? One of them is ditching key signatures. And the reason I ditch key signatures in most late elementary, super early intermediate, not by the time you get to something that's more difficult, but the reason I don't put any key signatures in is because I just think it's so mean. Because as soon as you teach a student to have a reaction to an accidental that's on a key, I mean, that's on a note, then you say, okay, but we're not going to put them there. We're going to put them somewhere else. So just remember that. And I just think it's really nasty. And it's also, you get very poor results.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if you don't put in a key signature, like there's a piece I wrote called Mashed Potato Clouds. That's sort of like everybody likes
classic.
that piece. Yeah, everybody loves that piece. It's in F major. And the fact that that B flat appears in front of that B helps your students know whether or not that's the one they're supposed to play. Like it just makes reading easier for them.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? So if you made it easier, why not do that? After a while, it's fine. They kind of have a sense of what the key is. But at the beginning, they don't have that.
Yeah.
And that was something that was very controversial. My publishers did not want to do it. Anyway, yeah, key signatures, that's one thing. Then another thing that I just always put the pickups on the line they belong with, right?
Yes.
And I think putting the pickups on the, you know, the line that they belong with, what it really does is it basically puts a visual encouragement to finish a phrase. Because it just, you know, if you're playing da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 da, da 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 da, right? I'm singing mashed
Yes.
potato clouds, but it just has a great effect.
And it's interesting because once you have this on radar, you will notice infractions of it everywhere.
Everywhere, right?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
really do think it makes a difference because, again, back to this thought of the visual component of what we do, we really just don't take in everything our students are because we already have a preconceived idea of what that's
Yeah.
telling us to do, and they don't. And I think I'm also so intrigued with this because my dad owned a print shop growing up, paper and printing and typesetting and all of those things. Like that is
They're part of your life.
they're part of my life. And I, still, if I go to a restaurant and the menu is printed a little off center on the page, I still notice it, and
Yeah,
all of
I'm
these
sure you
things.
do.
Or if the colors didn't quite get run through at the same place and all these silly little things. See, this is one of the thousands of reasons we get along. You were mentioning things that you'll lay claim to.
Yeah.
I have a few things that I give Diane Hidy credit for that
Okay.
have become somewhat mainstays in piano teacher world, and I want to throw them out and see if you agree that this was
If I claim them,
yes. Okay. Thing
I'll be
number
very
one
honest.
would be
Yes.
the ladybug squeezy.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, the ladybug squeezies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's totally me. That nobody ever did that before me. That was my idea.
Yes. So if you're listening
100%.
to this and you don't know about the ladybug squeezy, there's like a foam ladybug. And Diane used to have a very prolific blog, and you would put all kinds of helpful things for teachers on that site. And one of the things you introduced Piano Teacher World to was this ladybug squishy that fits under a student's
Yeah,
hand.
it just fits under your hand like this. Yeah.
And teachers took that and ran with it. And
Hmm.
I just want to make sure people recognize that that came from you.
It did come from me. Yeah, it came from me. It also came from me in the way that all those things came from me, which is that I used to just buy all kinds of crazy stuff for my students
Yes.
and just wacky things like I'm looking over here. There's a giraffe, a collapsible giraffe, whatever.
I
So
was
I
going
always
to
had
talk
these
about the
things
collapsible
yeah,
giraffe.
I always had these things around, and I did not buy that thinking I'm going to use this for hand position. I bought it because I was always looking for fidget toys that were quiet to give my students to hold on to
Mm-hmm.
when they were like doing something I didn't want them to do. I just wanted them to have something to hold on to. So that's how that came into my life. I just bought all these weird fidget toys that were quiet. And then one day I went, oh my gosh. I threw it under one of my students' hands and their hand was like perfect. And I went, oh, this is gold. So that's how it happened. I didn't see it in a store and say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wouldn't that be great? I just had it in my drawer
Yeah.
and was looking for something. So,
And Piano Teacher World has never been the same. No, well, the same in my mind goes for those little Iwako erasers, like the
yeah,
little puzzle erasers.
yeah, no, I'll totally take credit for that. It's now so ubiquitous and everybody uses them, and people like to say that they thought of it, whatever, but they didn't. These were all things that I used to buy off a site called Office Playground, which is long gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I would buy all these things and just mess around with them and see what happened if I used them. And those things were just, I mean, those were gold.
Yeah.
They were
And
gold. They were
still
small, stable on the keys. Oh, I know. Everybody loves them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're so useful. And you can use them with adults because they sort of disarm them. Hey, let's look at this. You want to teach somebody what an inversion is. This, this cow only gets to go on D flats or whatever. I mean, yeah, they're super helpful. But yeah, that was me too.
And I guess I should probably qualify for any teachers that are like, what are they talking about? We're talking about these little puzzle erasers, and they come in animals and all kinds of other shapes. I remember you showing us some sushi rolls, I think, at IMTA.
Yeah. But the animals are really the best.
The animals are definitely the best. You
Yeah.
used to be able to buy better themed packs than you can now.
Oh, you can't buy good ones anymore.
No, like I bought all snowmen. Like there was a snowman pack with a Christmas tree, and that was such a lifeline. I still have them, but you can't buy those anymore. You can't just buy a pack of hedgehogs, at least not that I can find. And the hedgehogs are the best because they balance on the black and the white.
I know. Those are fabulous. I still have a huge supply of,
Yeah.
well, you know what? I don't know how many I have left because, well, I used to sell all that stuff and then,
That's
I
right.
just stopped doing it because that wasn't very interesting to me. But
Though they're so popular, and I laugh because classroom teachers have gotten onto those. That's a
mhm.
whole wave for classroom teachers because they call them desk pets, and they let students earn them and like keep a little desk pet on their desk, like, and they put it under
Mm,
this little plastic dome. That
yeah,
spread a few years ago on social media, and I wanted to be like, oh my gosh, the piano teachers have been way ahead of you.
yeah, exactly.
But you can find those packs on my favorites list, but I'll always give you credit.
I have to say, I do sometimes get kind of not thrilled when someone decides that they're going to say that they thought of all these things. I mean, it is possible sometimes. I mean, I wrote a blog one time and somebody wrote me hate mail saying that they'd thought of this phrase that I used. And I was
Oh
like,
no.
one of my friends said, it is possible to have the same thought someone else has, right? I mean, I really hadn't read this other person's blog and I really did think of it myself. So, but it does happen sometimes. People
Absolutely.
do think of more than, but I do think that the sort of culture of props
Yeah.
was something I was instrumental in having people think of it as not just, you just are sitting there with this book
Yes.
and the piano.
Yeah. Even things like taking sticky notes and putting them on either side of the problem measure that you're working on or the problem phrase. I always credit you with doing that first. But
I think I deserve it because I
yes.
never read about that anyplace else, right? Yeah, the whole post-it practice. I mean, I used to do lots and lots and lots of seminars for teachers on all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I love that you touched on the hate mail that you got, like stealing someone's idea, because I get a lot of people that come to me and ask me, what's your advice if I want to start podcasting, blogging, creating content, whatever. And you are such a pioneer in this whole, like, let's help teachers equip themselves with better tools. And it's a wonderful part of this job that I found myself in. But what a lot of people don't understand is when you put your ideas out to large communities of piano teachers or whoever, people are going to take those ideas and run with them and make them their own or not credit you or whatever. And but I do see things out in the world and I'm like, oh, yep, you got that from me. You didn't credit me. And it's okay, but you do have to make peace with that. And I would assume, as someone with the reach that you had and still have, that sometimes you're a little like,
I mostly just laugh now though, because
yeah,
it doesn't really make that much difference. If it's a good idea and it's benefiting students, and I really don't want to sound like super Pollyanna about the whole thing, but if it does and it
yeah.
helps kids especially, then go for it, whatever. I don't actually mind not being credited. I mind when someone says they thought of it. And I know they
Yes,
didn't. And I literally know they didn't. That I don't like. But
yes.
otherwise, if they don't, they're just talking about they found this great thing, whatever.
Well, and there's
Whatever.
some really ugly manifestations of it. Like I have a good friend who creates resources, and there's another teacher who blatantly tends to rip her off and publish her own resources doing the same thing. And that is very irksome to me. I think it's because I have this obsession with legacy in piano teaching. It's what draws me most to the profession is this idea that we're all out here carrying on ideas that were given to us from teachers and we just keep passing it and we're just one link in this chain. And so I think sometimes I get hyper vigilant, like I'm sitting here like wanting everyone to know that Diane Hidy did this thing with the ladybug squeezy. But actually, I was talking to your friend Jason Sifford at the start
Oh,
of this conversation series. And one of the things we were talking about is the fact that in this creator culture we have, we're going to die and the access to these things we make are not always going to be available. And I was kind of processing out loud, like how awful this is and how are we going to make sure our resources live on? And he was basically, because he's so smart, was just like, well, they're not going to. And it's just always been that way. And there it is.
why?
And I was
Oh, well,
like,
Jason's as good as they come. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I adore that guy and everything he does. Talk about great composing. I love to teach his music. I have a bunch
For
of it
sure.
sitting right there. I mean, he's
Yeah.
fantastic. And
For sure.
also, now that's a good example of somebody that is a complete win-win. Let's make a bigger pie. We're not stealing from each other. So we edit each other's music. We, he will call me when he's got a great idea and say, what do you think about this? Do you think it's going to sell? What do you think, whatever. And it's nice to have people like that would never steal your idea, would never do anything but support you, would always try to help you edit your music to make it the best it possibly could be, all that kind of stuff. And I do have colleagues like that are just amazing. He's a particularly good example of that. That's something Elisa Milne, who I just adore, an Australian composer. She has not been writing very much of late, but all of her Little Peppers books and Pepperbox Jazz are just the best. They're just the very best.
I'll tell you what, this has been really fun. We could go all day long.
I think so, but we would need like coffee and pastries or something.
Oh my gosh, this just sounds better and better.
Getting better, isn't it?
Well, tell our listeners what you're up to these days and where they can find more about what Diane Hidy is about.
Well, I'm teaching privately in San Francisco. I'm teaching at Idlewild in the summer, and I teach adults, some of whom are teachers. If anybody wants a fun, fabulous place to be in the summer, you can contact me for more information. And then I'm mostly just teaching privately. And then in terms of writing, you can get all of the things that I publish through Chose. That's spelled KJOS. For anybody who doesn't know, that's the weird word of my life. So things that I wrote a while ago, and all of the attention grabber pieces are all there, and Piano Town, the method that I wrote. And then also where all the new things are that I wrote is on Compose Create, which is Wendy Stevens' site. And I've written a lot of things. Most recently, I spent a huge amount of time writing a massive scale project, which is called Smart Scales. And so that's a big project that I wrote. It's small scale melodies with accompaniments. And the idea is that they're all in 6/8. They all have a lilt to them. And they're all about developing facility in a key and turning the teacher into, as I call it, the collaborator instead of the corrector. Basically everything that I wrote, everything that I made because I wanted it. So I don't make stuff because someone said, oh, this would be a good thing. I always make things that I need.
Yes.
I wrote these scale things because I hate teaching scales, and I love to play fast, and I love that I know all my scales, right? But what happened was I felt like there was nothing to bridge the gap between single octave scales and playing. So what happened was everybody was taught to play one octave scales, hands alone, and then put them together. And that is way too hard for most people. I mean, for your just normal kids, it's way, way, way too hard. And so I just made this massive resource. There are 4 volumes. It's, white keys, black key majors, and then white and black key minors. Some of those were really difficult to write. They had all kinds of problems built into them. But I wrote that huge project because I wanted it.
Yeah.
I just wrote it for my students. And it turned into this sort of glorious thing where my students would say, can we play those? I want to play Smart Scales. And I thought, it's very interesting that they like this product. Like they like it, oh, that sounds really good, which is just, not what people usually get when they're playing scales.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned it because I feel very strongly about Smart Scales. I think it is an invaluable resource for teachers. And I know at some point, I think you and I were talking about it and you were saying, some of it is just what you would naturally do in the lesson. Like this idea of improvising a duet underneath your students play scale patterns. Many of us do that. However, not everyone can, right?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting to me. Even people who can improvise well sometimes appreciate structure. They appreciate ideas. So like I can improvise really well. That's one of the things that I count in my wheelhouse of stuff that I can do. But many people can't, or they just need some ideas.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, I have lots of students whose parents play well enough that they can play the accompaniments,
Yes.
or they can play one hand of the accompaniment, or whatever, some piece of it. So, I don't think that it even necessarily means you can't improvise, that you still might find it helpful to have the ideas put out in front of you. And most people, I think, can't just improvise in every single key. Because, a lot of people are teaching like on the high side of their ability, whether they meant to or not. They were the church organist and people asked them if they could teach some kids, and now they found themselves teaching some kids.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Absolutely. The other thing that Smart Scales does is it just reinforces my perspective about scales, which is that you want your students to see them as a path on which their music is built, right? And so like when I'm playing in B major, like this is the trail that I can follow. And so you take it and you make it musical by putting it in 6/8 time. It's so much more satisfying for them to play their scales because it sounds like music and it's incredible. And no longer is scale practice this mundane thing that I just have to do, that I do mindlessly and without any musical input. But it really transforms their value for your students. And the other thing, I'll just throw this out there, and the other thing that I'll use Smart Scales for is sometimes, especially when I'm in my group classes, I'll use it for ear training. And you talk about, I can make up melodic patterns on the scales all day long, but just like you said, sometimes it's nice to just have it done for you. So I'll play them one of the patterns and they have to try to play it back and know kind of where the twists and the turns were. And that's been really good for my students.
And also, you have to remember what you played.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So if it's not written down, that's a lovely idea. I could improvise things, but would I know whether they played exactly what I played? I don't know. I got to have it written down. So then that means I have to write it down. But anyway.
Okay. I do need to know this. Tell me something you love beyond measure, Diane Hidy.
What do I love beyond measure? I love hearing my students play really well.
Yeah.
I love having my students choose to be music minors because they love to play the piano. I love students who are not music majors or music minors, but still come home and take lessons and come and study with me in Idlewild. I just like people making music for their whole lives. That's what I like. That's the thing that really floats my boat is, and I think one of the things that really, really does make me happy is being able to unravel more advanced people's techniques so that they can play better. Yeah. People who've been tied up for years and now are not, that makes me feel really good. Anytime I feel like I can make an appreciable difference in someone's playing and they want to be playing, they're not being pushed into it by somebody else, that makes me really happy.
That's the stuff of teacher life, Diane.
Well, that's the good stuff. There are lots of things that aren't great about it, but that piece about it, I think, makes up for it for sure for me. It makes me really, really happy.
That's why you're doing what you're doing. Can you close us out with a toast to the profession, Diane?
Here's to trying to construct your week in such a way that there's no day that makes you want to have a drink at the end of it.
Cheers to that. That's perfect. I couldn't have asked for anything better from you, Diane.
Sorry, I know that's probably not what you were looking for, but if you can make your schedule feel like every day is one you look forward to, Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Diane. This has been
You're welcome, dear.
Treat of treats.
Well, I hope it's been fun for you. It's been fun for me.
For sure. Friends, I'm telling you, Diane Hidy is one in a million. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Remember, there is so much more where this came from, and that's available over in the Super Friends community on Patreon. Head to ChristinaWhitlock.com/community and learn all about it. As of this episode's release, I am going to be seeing many of you at NCKP in just a few days. If you are at the NCKP conference, please make sure you say hello. I'm presenting a session on quiet students on Thursday at 10:30, and I'm hosting a meetup with Amy Chaplin from Piano Pantry on Friday at 5:15. I am looking forward to being with my people in actual physical space in just a matter of days. If you can't come to NCKP, mark your calendars for August 1st when I am hosting a live watch party for my newest resource, The Paradox of Play. You can find all the info on that in today's show notes, but for now, this is me just wishing you well. Onward and upward, my friends.